doing everything in both language. I have heard him. I have heard him bilingually many times.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
No,
Kind of you.
mute कर
Particular,
लीजिए.
yeah, yeah, sure. In not particularly. Okay. Yeah.
Now everyone.
Hardik Karni.
Because it is live now.
Uh, Good evening, everybody. We are here on 15 September 2020 at 7 p.m. for our for our for our
Unmute कर लीजिए. सुशांत unmute कर लीजिए.
sure. We are here for our 10th webinar in the AIFRT, All India Forum for Right to Education series of critically appraising the draft NEP 2020 that was approved by the cabinet on 29th July 2020. In this sense, we have had eminent speakers speak in the forum about the draft inhibitions, the problems around it, and also what needs to be done in the future course of actions. In continuation of the series, we have with us an eminent speaker today in Professor Ram Punyani sir, who is presently the chairman for Center of Study of Society and Secularism in Mumbai. He has been a distinguished professor former professor at IIT Bombay. He has also been associated with various secular initiatives and has been part of various investigation reports on issues of human rights violations of especially minorities. He has also been very much in the forefront while delivering workshops and conducting lectures all across the country on themes related to democracy, agenda of communal politics, the myths about minorities and politics of terror, and path to peace and justice. He has authored a number of books, including Caste and Communalism, Communal Politics, Facts versus Myths, Deconstructing Terrorist Violence, Indian Nationalism versus Hindu Nationalism, Communalism Explained, and has also bagged several awards, including the National Communal Harmony Award in 2007, Indira Gandhi National Integration Award in 2006, and Mukundan C. Menon Award in 2015. Uh, Without taking much time, I think we'll straight away go into the talk, and I hand over the forum to Professor Ram Punyani sir. He will be speaking today around NEP 2020 in the backdrop of the ascending Hindutva agendas. So I think that is an interesting area to dwell into, and I hand over it to Professor Ram Punyani sir without any.
Good evening, friends. Namaste, Adab. First of all, I must congratulate the forum for continuing this series, for understanding this new education policy in depth. ये बहुत क्योंकि किसी मुद्दे को गहराई से समझना हो तो उस पे उसके अलग अलग पहलुओं को देखना बहुत ज़रूरी है. I am also glad that so many speakers have already talked on this, and I'm sure they must have given the basic outline, which is very disturbing to us. Today, I'll be focusing mainly on the point that this new education policy, as declared now, is a further step of Hindu nationalist politics. And when I say Hindu nationalist politics, I don't mean the religion, Hinduism. I will not be touching the points on religion. I'll be talking on the politics, which is done in the name of religion. It may be politics in the name of Islam, politics in the name of Buddhism, politics in the name of Christianity or Hinduism. So that will be my focus. I must clarify this. तो दोस्तों पहले तो मैं ये बता दूं कि ये आज मैं जिस विषय पर फोकस करूंगा, क्योंकि मेरा विश्वास है पहले जो वक्ताओं ने बात रखी होगी न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के मुख्य मुद्दों पर उन्होंने उसके स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में बात की होगी. मैं जो बात करूंगा ज़्यादातर ये न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी ये हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद को मजबूत करने की एक और कड़ी है. So the point which of course I must say that our friend Anil Satgopal was very kind enough to send me his article which had come in Frontline, which is a very brilliant analysis of this policy. So I will not be repeating too many of those points, but basically what affects the foundation of the policy is around number one, the language. In the language, they are talking of a confusing term of local language, regional language. And this, to me, more than promoting the regional or local language, is an attempt to undermine the importance of English and to deprive the poor sections of society from the quality English education, which is very important for getting the jobs in the country and worldwide, apart from enhancing one's own understanding of the world. तो पहला मुद्दा जो इस न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में जिसके बारे में हमें सोचना है वो ये कि इसमें क्षेत्रीय भाषाएं, स्थानीय भाषाओं को जो महत्व दिया है एक तरह से वो अच्छा है, और इसी के साथ साथ अंग्रेजी जो आज एक प्रकार से उस प्रकार की भाषा है जिसमें बहुत सारा साहित्य उपलब्ध है और जिसके कारण बहुत सारी समाज की प्रगति हुई, भारत एज ए देश की भी बहुत प्रगति हुई, उसको एक कम करके आंका जा रहा है। वो पहला एक छोटा सा मुद्दा है। दूसरा, ये जो हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति में जो सर्व शिक्षा अभियान था, सर्व शिक्षा अभियान के साथ साथ जो एक समाज की, सरकार की एक जिम्मेदारी है कि ये शिक्षा जो है समाज के सभी तबकों तक उपलब्ध हो। पर अब इसमें ऐसे रास्ते खोले जा रहे हैं जिससे प्राइवेट जो सेक्टर है, वर्ल्ड बैंक के जो दूसरे हथियार हैं, वो इसमें आने की संभावना से जो समाज के गरीब तबके हैं, खास तौर से दलित, आदिवासी, महिला और गरीब अल्पसंख्यक, उन्हें ये शिक्षा की सुविधाओं से वंचित होना पड़ सकता है। The point which I was trying to make is that because of the undermining of English, a large section of society will be deprived from the increase in one's understanding, global understanding, national understanding, and the possibility of future employment, which the English language as such holds a great advantage in this particular thing. At the same time, the possibility of privatization of education, which is already there, which will be enhanced number of times. I regard that education should be a policy which should be the right, in a way, which should be the right for all the people. And this should be a responsibility of the state to ensure that the education is available to all the people with equal quality. Now, what is happening lately is that the private sector is coming up and the public sector education, its quality has been abysmal from last quite some time. And to gap this difference between a public school, means a private school, which is where heavy fees are charged, and the government or municipal schools is widening, and this widening will get further. And I do regard that education must be one of the top priorities of any state which looks after the concerns of the people. So the third point which I want to make is that this education is also going to open up the ground for a lot of foreign universities to come in. And these foreign universities, the type of pattern, apart from being very expensive, apart from being having a orientation which is different, which will again be quite a problematic thing. These points I'm taking briefly because I'm sure these must have been covered by the other speaker. तो मैं जो कह रहा था कि इसी के साथ साथ जहाँ शिक्षा का एक निजीकरण होने जा रहा है, प्राथमिक शिक्षा से लेकर ऊपरी तक, और ये निजीकरण के जो शिकार होंगे वो खास तौर से समाज के उपेक्षित तबके, गरीब तबके, और उसमें खास तौर से आदिवासी, दलित, गरीब अल्पसंख्यक और गरीब मजदूर, इनको ज़्यादा इसका बोझ, इसका ज़्यादा सहना पड़ेगा। इसी के साथ साथ एक और चीज़ है कि शिक्षा में अगर आप देखिए तो शुरू से इसको दो पैर पे रखा गया है। ये स्टेट सब्जेक्ट भी है और नेशनल सब्जेक्ट भी है। पर इसमें जो फेडरलिज्म की बात है कि राज्य का अपना रोल होगा, राज्य शिक्षा को अपने हिसाब से मॉडिफाई कर पाएगा, उसको काफ़ी दूर करने की कोशिश की गई है और ज़्यादा अधिकार केंद्र की सत्ता को दिया जाएगा। So this whole concept of federalism which Indian constitution had in the context of education, that it is a state subject also, it's a central subject also, so that states can modify their education according to the local needs of the state. So those possibilities will go on diminishing over a period of time. So this is the overall structure, which I will not go much into detail. The next point which I am going to elaborate a bit more is there is advice, there is a suggestion in this new economic policy that there should be a promotion of traditional Indian values. And this is where I think the major, according to me, one of the major things apart from other things which can create, which can intensify the inequality in the society, which can create a sort of a disparity between diverse sections of society. Now, this promotion, so-called promotion of Indian traditional values, is a very problematic area. तो बाकी चीजों के साथ साथ इसमें जो दूसरी बात है कि पारंपरिक भारतीय मूल्यों को प्रोत्साहन देना, ये वैसे तो बहुत लगता है कि इसमें कुछ खास बात नहीं है, पर मुझे इसमें काफी खास बात लगती है। खास बात इसलिए लगती है कि जिसको ट्रेडिशनल पारंपरिक भारतीय मूल्य कहे जाते हैं, वो ज्यादातर ब्राह्मणवादी मूल्य हैं, वो ज्यादातर उनसे संबंधित है, जैसे उसके साथ साथ संस्कृत के एक प्रमोशन की भी बात है, पुरानी कुछ भाषाओं के प्रमोशन की बात तो नाम की है, पर मुख्य रूप से संस्कृत पे एक एम्फेसिस है और उन मूल्यों की बात है जो भारतीय जिसको भारतीय परंपरा माना जाता है. So the point of promoting the traditional Indian values is a bit problematic. Along with this, they also talk of promoting Sanskrit, and incidentally they also mention Pali and Prakrit, but basically they are hinting at Sanskrit to come forward. And we all know that there may be few thousands of people only, people in thousands in this vast country of 130 crore people who can speak or who can understand Sanskrit or who can use Sanskrit. So this another major point. So when we talk of these traditional Indian values, there comes the whole issue. And this is what I must follow it in a different trajectory also. And that trajectory is like this, that in our educational curriculum, and here the major thing relates to the content of the curriculum, and this content of the curriculum, I must say, RSS has been working. Now, of course, they are in superpower. Superpower means they are above the power which is ruling. So they are the superpower in that sense. I am not using the word superpower in the sense of a global superpower, but RSS and Sangh, they are very much focused on this issue of curriculum of education. तो RSS और संघ का ये हमेशा एक तरीका रहा है कि वो शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में अपनी राय को रखते रहें, अपनी राय को लागू करने के लिए आग्रह करते रहें, और जब भी सरकार उनके नजदीक की होती है तो उनके मूल्यों को वो ज्यादा असरदार तरीके से ज्यादा लाने की कोशिश करते हैं. तो जहाँ तक करिकुलम का सवाल है, मेरे ख्याल से as far as curriculum is concerned, that is the most disturbing thing for me. And in the name of this traditional values, I believe that the values which belong to the traditional Adivasis, Dalits, women in particular, they are not regarded as the mainstream Indian values. The mainstream Indian values, according to them, which of course they have been doing, I'm saying on the basis what they have already been regarding and what is a part of their politics, accordingly I am saying. So जिन मूल्यों को वो लाना चाहते हैं, वो मूल्य, क्योंकि भारत एक बहुत विविधतापूर्ण देश है, इसमें क्षेत्रीय विविधता है, एक धर्म के अंदर कोई यूनिफॉर्मिटी नहीं है, और बहुत सारी धर्म के अंदर भी बहुत विविधताएं हैं, और उनमें ये जो जब ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन वैल्यूज की बात करते हैं तो मुख्य रूप से वो ब्राह्मणवादी मूल्यों की बात करते हैं जो कुछ संस्कृत ग्रंथों में हैं. तो ये उनका एक मुख्य फोकस है. और इसके लिए इस नीति में आने के पहले हम थोड़ा सा इतिहास देख लें कि आरएसएस ने इस पे कैसे काम किया, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है, जैसे मैंने शुरुआत में कहा, कि न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी ये आरएसएस के एजेंडा का एक अगला पार्ट है जो इसको बहुत मजबूती दे सकता है। तो इसको मैं 3-4 अवस्थाओं में बताऊंगा। तो व्हाट आई विल ट्राई टू से दैट दिस न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी is a further step in deepening the agenda of RSS, which is Hindu nationalism, Hindu Rashtra, Hindu nation. It is a further step in that, and so I will like to trace it in a historical trajectory. And in this historical trajectory, before I come to 1998, when their intervention was very clear, I will also like to begin a bit as to what is their understanding of our society from the beginning. तो इस बात पर आने के पहले मैं थोड़ा ये बात को कहना चाहूँगा कि उनकी जो भारत की समझ, हमारे देश की समझ, देश जो विविधतापूर्ण है, जहाँ भाषाओं की विविधता, संस्कृतियों की विविधता और एक हिंदू धर्म भी कोई एक होमोजिनस एक रूपी धर्म नहीं है, इसके अंदर भी बहुत सारी अलग-अलग परंपराएं चलती हैं। पर जो आरएसएस की समझ है, वहाँ से हम चालू करेंगे। और उसमें 1925 में जब आरएसएस बना, अब यहाँ थोड़ा सा मैं और भी बात दे देता हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद और हिंदू धर्म का थोड़ा, हिंदू तो शब्द को थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ेगा। इसलिए मैं बता दूं कि 1925 में जब आरएसएस बना, उस समय एक तरफ भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद का विकास हो रहा था, और भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद में यहाँ मैं क्लियर कट स्पष्ट रूप से देख सकता हूँ कि भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद में आप जो देखते हैं, तो भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद में मेरे प्रतीकों के रूप में एनी प्रॉब्लम?
Yes, sir. Sorry to interrupt, but when you are speaking, there's some voice of the wires, I think. There's the wires around.
Voice of the... I'll try to, I don't know how to fix
This is
it up.
better now.
No,
This is better?
Professor Priani, it was fine. It just happened almost 30 seconds before. And I
Okay.
think it's again fine, I think.
Okay. Because I'm not very good
No,
savvy
that's
at
fine. It
these
has been
things.
going well. वो थोड़ा सा
Okay.
बीच में कुछ आया था अभी, I think.
अच्छा, ये बताइए, ये
अभी ठीक
हिंदी
है।
अंग्रेजी का कॉम्बिनेशन बराबर चल
बिल्कुल
रहा है?
ठीक है, बिल्कुल बढ़िया है
चलिए,
सर,
ठीक है,
बिल्कुल
चलिए।
बढ़िया है। Just go on.
थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Yeah.
तो मैं थोड़ा सा, क्योंकि इस पूरे परिप्रेक्ष्य को, पूरी समस्या
फिर
को
आने लग गया थोड़ा थोड़ा।
मैं एक वायर निकाल देता हूँ, चलिए देखिए, क्योंकि मैं हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद को, इस न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी को हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद के एजेंडा का एक भाग करता हूँ, भाग के रूप में देखता हूँ, इसलिए मैं थोड़ा सा हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद के बारे में बता दूं। तो मेरी समझ ये है कि आज़ादी के आंदोलन के दौरान जहाँ एक तरफ भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद का विकास हुआ, और भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद के आइकन्स, सिंबल्स, प्रतीक के रूप में मैं 3 व्यक्तियों को रखता हूँ: शहीद भगत सिंह, भीमराव बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर, मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी, और मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी के एक भाग के रूप में मौलाना अबुल कलाम आजाद। ये मेरे प्रतीक हैं भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद के। अब जब भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद विकसित हो रहा था, इसके साथ 2 और खास चीजें हुई। एक था महिलाओं के बीच में सावित्रीबाई फुले द्वारा शिक्षा को ले जाना, और दूसरा था ज्योतिराव फुले द्वारा शिक्षा को दलितों के बीच में ले जाना। So before I come to this current efforts of theirs to influence the syllabus, I like to give a small background of this development of Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, Hindu Rashtra concepts. So my understanding is that Hindu nation concept is not very old. Hindu nation concept is not very old. It's a modern phenomenon. It's a modern phenomenon. It has nothing to do with Hindu religion in any way. It makes Brahminical Hinduism as one of its starting point, but it converts that into a political project. So in 1925, when RSS was formed, RSS took off from Savarkar. Savarkar, of course, all of us must be knowing that Savarkar was anti-British in the beginning of his life. Then he was imprisoned in Andaman jails. Andaman jails, he apologized to the British government and sought his release, and he was released with a good amount of hefty pension, and he had promised that he will assist the British. And he brought forth, he did not coin, he brought forth the word Hindutva, and its goal being Hindu nation. So what is Hindutva according to Savarkar? According to Savarkar, Hindutva is total Hindu-ness. There are three components of Hindutva. First component is Brahminical values. Second component is Aryan race. And third component is this land. So Hindutva, and the goal of Hindutva, as Savarkar says, who is a Hindu? He gives a political definition of Hindu, and that definition is that a person who regards this land as fatherland and holy land is a Hindu. So this is a Hindu nation. He also pointed out that there are two nations in this country, Hindu nation and the Muslim nation. But Muslims are foreigners, so primarily it's a Hindu nation in which foreign element of Muslims are there. So RSS की शुरुआत जो हुई वो सावरकर की विचारधारा से हुई. सावरकर ने जो पहले अंडमान जेल में थे, अंडमान जेल से जिन्होंने अंग्रेजों से माफी मांगकर छूट कर आए, उन्होंने अंग्रेजों को वादा दिया कि मैं आपकी पूरी मदद करूंगा, और उन्हें बहुत अच्छी मोटी पेंशन अंग्रेजों ने दी. तो सावरकर ने पहली बात जो सामने रखी, हिंदुत्व शब्द को सामने लाया, और हिंदुत्व शब्द को उन्होंने परिभाषित किया. उन्होंने कहा हिंदुत्व ये कोई धर्म नहीं है, ये पूरा हिंदूपन है. और इसके तीन आधार उन्होंने बताए. पहला आधार ब्राह्मणवादी मूल्य, दूसरा आधार आर्यन रेस, आर्य नस्ल, और तीसरा आधार यहाँ की जमीन. साथ ही उन्होंने कहा कि यहाँ दो राष्ट्र हैं, देयर टू नेशंस, दो राष्ट्र हैं, एक हिंदू राष्ट्र और दूसरा मुस्लिम राष्ट्र. क्योंकि मुसलमान विदेशी हैं, इसलिए प्राथमिक रूप से ये एक हिंदू राष्ट्र है. तो इसी विचारधारा को लेकर 1925 में आरएसएस बनी. तो आरएसएस उस समय राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन का भाग नहीं थी. राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन का जो नैरेटिव था, जो समझ थी, राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन की समझ दो व्यक्तियों की दो किताबों में खास तौर से मिलती हैं. पहले व्यक्ति हैं मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी, उनकी किताब हिंद स्वराज, और दूसरे हैं जवाहरलाल नेहरू, जिनकी किताब डिस्कवरी ऑफ इंडिया. इसमें वो भारत की कल्पना रखते हैं जहाँ सभी धर्मों के लोग एक दूसरे से मिलजुल कर प्यार मोहब्बत से जीवन का आनंद लेते हैं. सो द नैरेटिव विच आरएसएस क्रिएटेड वाज वेरी डिफरेंट from the narrative of the national movement. What was the narrative of the national movement? It reflects into two major personalities, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in his book Hind Swaraj, and Jawaharlal Nehru in his book Discovery of India, when they say India is a multi-religious society where people have been living together, not tolerating, who have been celebrating each other, giving rise to India's unique culture, language, food habits, religious traditions, and literature. So this was the one narrative. So RSS created a narrative that we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. Now, this is very funny. Times immemorial, how far back we go into the history, I don't know, because the word Hindu itself comes into existence from 8th century only. But of course, all the communalists, they claim to be the first comers in that land. We are the most original people, so the whole thing belongs to us. This is the beginning of RSS narrative, that we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. What was national movement was saying that time? Gandhi, Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, Ambedkar, what were they saying? They were saying India is a nation in the making. They were looking forward to a golden future. And Muslim nationalists and Hindu nationalists, they said that we had a golden past. Please note this difference, very, very clear difference. Huh? So the communalists, Muslim communalists, Hindu communalists, for them, the past was glorious. And the Indian nationalists, they are saying we have to build a golden future where everybody is equal, everybody is free, and everybody can live with dignity. So please note these two different points. तो ये दो points को आप जरा note कीजिए कि भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद, भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद एक भविष्य का सपना देखता है जहां सब लोग बराबर हैं, सब लोग इज्जत से रहते हैं और सब लोग आजाद हैं। और उस तरह दूसरी तरफ मुस्लिम राष्ट्रवाद भी उसी प्रकार की बात करता है जैसा हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद करता है। इनके लिए पुराना ओल्डन पीरियड ये उनका सुनहरा काल था। और ये सुनहरा काल क्यों था? क्योंकि उस समय सामंती मूल्य, जमींदारी मूल्य, जन्मजात ऊंच नीच के मूल्य, और ये ऊंच नीच के मूल्य तीन होते हैं। एक आर्थिक आधार पे जमींदार और किसान, दूसरा सामाजिक आधार पे ब्राह्मण और शूद्र, और तीसरा जेंडर के आधार पे पुरुष और स्त्री। पुरुष श्रेष्ठ है, स्त्री उसकी संपत्ति है। तो ये जो पास्ट की बातें करते हैं, मैं भारत के बाहर भी जाके देखता हूँ, जो मुस्लिम ब्रदरहुड हो, क्रिश्चियन फंडामेंटलिस्ट हो, बुद्धिस्ट फंडामेंटलिस्ट हो, सब में ये बात अंतर्निहित है कि ये जन्म जात ऊंच नीच की बात को एक सुनहरा पीरियड मानते हैं। इसका उदाहरण मैं थोड़ी देर में दूंगा, पर सो द बेसिक पॉइंट व्हिच आई एम ट्राइंग टू से, एवरी कम्युनलिस्ट, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, they look at the past as glorious because in the past there was a rigid birth-based hierarchy. Birth-based hierarchy of what? At economic level, of landlord and the serf. At social level, Brahmin, in Indian context now I am talking a bit, Brahmin and the Shudra. And at gender level, men and the women. Men were supposed to be the owners of women. That's why our women, their women, that sort of a thing. So RSS ने इस डिस्कोर्स को सामने लिया, और अगर मैं इसको थोड़ा शॉर्ट करना चाहूँ तो मैं दो व्यक्तियों के रूप में इस डायकोटोमी को, इस अंतर्विरोध को, इस फर्क को आपके सामने रखना चाहूंगा। दो व्यक्ति, एक मैं मानता हूँ भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद, जो भारत में उभरते वर्गों का प्रतीक था। मैंने आपको चार आइकॉन्स बताए, भगत सिंह, अंबेडकर, गांधी, मौलाना आजाद, ये चार मैंने बताए। अब इनके जो मूल्य थे, इनके मूल्यों में मैं अंबेडकर को ले लेता हूँ। आई टेक अंबेडकर ने उस समय चौदार तालाब का आंदोलन किया, कालाराम मंदिर का आंदोलन किया, और उसी के साथ साथ एक किताब को जलाया। किताब का नाम आपको पता होगा, मनुस्मृति। मनुस्मृति को जलाते समय अंबेडकर जी ने सोचा होगा, मनुस्मृति में शूद्र ये हैं, ये कानून मुझे मंजूर नहीं है, इसलिए मैं इस किताब को जला रहा हूं। और वही भीमराव बाबा साहब अंबेडकर बाद में जाकर भारतीय संविधान की ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी के अध्यक्ष बने। और भारतीय संविधान हमें क्या देता है? स्वतंत्रता, समता, बंधुता, न्याय। तो ये है मेरे डॉक्टर अंबेडकर। और दूसरे व्यक्ति का नाम आप में से कईयों ने सुना होगा, कईयों ने नहीं सुना होगा। नहीं सुना तो भी अच्छा है, सुना है तो ठीक है। और वो व्यक्ति का नाम है के सुदर्शन। कौन थे के सुदर्शन? सन 2000 में आरएसएस के मुखिया बने, सर संघ चालक। आरएसएस में अध्यक्ष नहीं होता, वैसे तो हमारी पार्टियों का हाल बड़ा बुरा है, कोई भी इतना डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टी अंदर से नहीं है, पर आरएसएस में तो थ्योरी में ही डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है, उसमें सर संघ चालक होता है के सुदर्शन। के सुदर्शन सन 2000 में आरएसएस के चीफ बने, और उन्होंने एक वक्तव्य दिया। ख्याल कीजिएगा, वक्तव्य क्या दिया? भारतीय संविधान विदेशी मूल्यों पर बना है। अब ये मूल्य स्वतंत्रता, समता, बंधुता, क्या ये विदेशी मूल्य है? पर वो कहते हैं विदेशी मूल्यों पे बना है, फेंक दो और एक ऐसा संविधान लाओ जो भारतीय धर्म ग्रंथों के आधार पे बना हो। आप गेस कर सकते हैं कौन से ग्रंथ की तरफ उनका इशारा है? मनुस्मृति। तो ये अंबेडकर खड़े हैं, मनुस्मृति जलाओ, भारतीय संविधान लाओ। और ये हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद, मुस्लिम राष्ट्रवाद की विचारधारा भी ऐसी होगी, ये कह रहे हैं भारतीय संविधान के मूल्यों को हटाओ और मनुस्मृति जैसे मूल्यों को सामने लाओ। तो this is after this I'll immediately switch to education. So what is basically being talked about? What is basically RSS talking about? Here I would like to compare and contrast a representative of Indian nationalism in the form of Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar and a representative of communal nationalism, Hindu nationalism, K. Sudarshan. K. Sudarshan may not be that much known. That time, of course, RSS was never seeking publicity, to be honest. Now, lately, they are so prominent that they are all known. So, K. Sudarshan, Bhimrao Babasaheb Ambedkar, he went in for Chaudhar Talab movement. You have to read about it. He went into Kalaram Mandir movement. Both times he faced a lot of obstacles, and then he went into burn a book, and the name of the book was Manusmriti. While burning this book, Ambedkar must have thought, Manusmriti gives the values of inequality, values of slavery, of women and low caste. So I don't accept it. Out with this book. Same Ambedkar went on to become the chief of drafting committee of Indian Constitution, which gives us liberty, equality, fraternity. So here is my Dr. Ambedkar. And there is K. Sudarshan in year 2000. He became the supreme dictator, Sarasang Chalak of RSS. And he says, Indian constitution is based on the Western values. Incidentally, I remember that organizations like Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, think people like Taliban, they all regard the values of liberty, equality, fraternity as Western values. And this is the way they propagate amongst their people, that how they should be thrown. So K. Sudarshan says these values are Western. I believe these are the universal human values. So he says, throw it away and bring a constitution based on holy Indian books. I hope you can guess his indication is towards Manusmriti. So Baba Sahib Ambedkar, burn Manusmriti, bring Indian constitution. RSS, communalists everywhere, throw away the values of liberty, equality, fraternity, bring in the values of caste and gender hierarchy. So this is the backdrop in which they develop a training module. Now, of course, I criticize myself that our narrative has not reached the people. Gandhi and Nehru tried to reach this narrative through the social actions, through the popular movements. But later on, we people who want those values, we have failed to communicate this narrative to the average people of the society. Anyway, but RSS created a narrative. What is the narrative? That we are a Hindu nation from times immemorial. Hindu society, no problem. Everything. Of course, they have now added on also. All the knowledge was also there. It may be plastic surgery, stem cell technology, and putting elephant's head on human head. Everything was there. We have forgotten. And because of the Western influence. And India's caste system, not internal problem because of Muslims. Varna system because of British. Very fine. So this was their narrative. And they said, we are Hindu society is a victim. 80% of the people are victims of these 14% Muslims. This is a very powerful narrative in which, of course, one can delve in that they go into the glorious Rana Pratap, glorious Shivaji, how they saved the Hindu society, etc., etc., forgetting that Shivaji had Muslim advisors and Aurangzeb had Hindu advisors. Of course, that's a separate topic. I will not go into that. But this is the narrative which is drilled into the shakhas, which are lakhs and lakhs in number, which have doubled up since 2014. So that I must tell you. So in these shakhas, this narrative is dealt. Great Hindu society, victim of aggression by Muslims, and later on, partly, of course, they are a bit milder on the British, etc., and Christians later on. So this narrative, and there the heroes are Ram, Krishna, about which Ambedkar writes in a book, Riddles of Rama and Krishna. Heroes are Rana Pratap, Shivaji, etc., etc. So RSS ने एक ट्रेनिंग मॉड्यूल बनाया जो उनकी लाखों शाखा के नहीं थी, औरतों को देवी मानते थे, सभी जातियां बराबर थी। समस्या क्यों पैदा हुई? मुसलमानों के आने से, कास्ट सिस्टम। समस्या क्यों पैदा हुई? अंग्रेजों के आने से, वर्णा प्रॉब्लम वगैरह वगैरह, ये उनका है। तो एक महान हिंदू समाज आज खतरे में है क्योंकि मुसलमान आए और मुसलमानों के बारे में एक लंबा चार्जशीट उनके साथ खड़ा रहता है। और ये आपको बता दूं कि सन 2014 के बाद यहाँ जो आरएसएस की शाखाओं की संख्या है वो पहले से डबल हो गई है, और इन्हीं शाखाओं में से इनके प्रचारक निकलते हैं। प्रचारक उनमें हाईएस्ट रहता है। जैसे यूनिवर्सिटी में प्रोफेसर हाईएस्ट होता है, तो आरएसएस के इसमें हाईएस्ट प्रचारक रहता है। कुछ प्रचारकों के नाम आपको बता दूं, ये अपने जो एक अभी के प्रधानमंत्री प्रचारक थे, और ये अपने जिसने महात्मा गांधी की हत्या की वो भी प्रचारक थे, जिसने मैंगलोर में लड़कियां जो पब से आ रही थी उस पर हमला करवाया, प्रमोद मुतालिक, वो भी प्रचारक थे। तो ये प्रचारक इनका हाईएस्ट कैटेगरी है, और ये प्रचारक अलग अलग तरीकों से काम करते हैं। तो यहाँ हम आते हैं उनका एजुकेशन में इंटरवेंशन। ये उनका बेसिक, दिस इज द बेसिक आइडियोलॉजी अराउंड विच आरएसएस ऑपरेट्स। तो पहला सबसे इनका आप जो देखें तो वो हमको दिखाई देता है 1998। 1998 के पहले भी सरस्वती शिशु मंदिर, एकल विद्यालय, ये जगह जगह बन गए, और इसके माध्यम से इनका जो वर्जन ऑफ हिस्ट्री, वर्जन ऑफ सोसाइटी, ग्लोरिफिकेशन ऑफ पास्ट, पुराना अच्छा समाज, इन्होंने उसमें शुरू कर दिया। तो सबसे पहले तो सीक्वेंस में एग्जैक्ट नहीं बता रहा, सरस्वती इसी के साथ साथ बाद में इन्होंने जगह जगह गांव गांव में जाके अपने नैरेटिव को मजबूत किया। तो पहला नैरेटिव कहाँ से? शाखाओं से। दूसरा ये स्कूलों से। अब 1998 में जब पहली बार एनडीए की सरकार आई अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी की प्रधानमंत्रित्व में, तो एक हमारे एमएचआरडी मिनिस्टर, अभी तो एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री करने जा रहे हैं ना, तो एमएचआरडी मिनिस्टर मुरली मनोहर जोशी, फिजिसिस्ट, साइंटिस्ट, और वो बहुत बेहतरीन उन्होंने आरएसएस के लिए काम किया। उन्होंने शिक्षा का भगवाकरण चालू किया, और ये शिक्षा के भगवाकरण में सैफ्रनाइजेशन ऑफ एजुकेशन, पहले उसको अच्छा माना गया, अभी उसको एक ग्लोरियस अच्छा टर्म बताया जा रहा है। उसी के साथ साथ ख्याल कीजिए, उन्होंने इतिहास की किताबों को बदला, और इतिहास की किताबों को उन्होंने जो बदलने की शुरुआत की, उसका पीक पॉइंट अभी आया। पीक पॉइंट आया राजस्थान में। राजस्थान में जब बीजेपी की सरकार आई तो उन्होंने इतिहास की किताबों में एक मजेदार परिवर्तन लाया। मजेदार परिवर्तन क्या है कि बोले हल्दी घाटी में जो अकबर और राणा प्रताप की लड़ाई हुई थी, उसमें राणा प्रताप जीत गए थे, अकबर हार गए थे। एक्सीलेंट, यानी दिस इज अ लिमिट टू विच द हिस्ट्री कैन बी मॉल्ड, डिस्टॉर्टेड, और इंटरप्रिटेशन हिंदू वर्सेस मुस्लिम। ये उन्होंने 1998 के बाद से शिक्षा के खासतौर से इतिहास में किया। और कौन से सब्जेक्ट्स उन्होंने इंट्रोड्यूस किए? इंट्रोड्यूसिंग न्यू सब्जेक्ट, नए सब्जेक्ट्स को लाना बहुत अच्छा होता है, पर उन्होंने कौन सा सब्जेक्ट लाया? एक तो लाया ये ज्योतिष शास्त्र, एस्ट्रोलॉजी। दूसरा कर्मकांड, पौरोहित्य, यानी कर्मकांड जो धर्म गुरु वगैरह करते हैं, तो ये दो सब्जेक्ट लाए। तो the saffronization, the first major intervention after, of course, they started Saraswati Shishu Mandirs, they started Ekal Vidyalayas, through which they started propagating their understanding of Indian society. And in 1998, when Vajpayee ji became the Prime Minister, his MHRD minister was Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi, a physicist, and he did this whole changes of curriculum in which they changed the things, and they also introduced subjects like astrology and rituals. All these were introduced as a subject. And one interesting example, which I must say, which culminated much later in the Rajasthan history textbooks, was the Battle of Haldighati, in which now they started saying that in this Haldighati battle, Akbar was defeated and Rana Pratap won the battle. Of course, I can go into details of that. Stop. Now, so this was the first phase. Meanwhile, they kept strengthening their Saraswati Shishu Mandirs, and Ekal Vidyalayas. Now they floated three other organizations. One was Vidya Bharati, second was Shiksha Bachao Abhiyan Samiti, then Shiksha Sansthan Utthan Nyas. Now, their basic thing which they want to do through this is number one, to create the mythology, to regard the mythology of Ramayana and Mahabharata as history. So this must be the biggest shock for the historians amongst us, those who are professional historians, who believe that history is also a science. But here mythology is history, and they're spending a lot of money wherever they come to power in trying to prove that Ramayana and Mahabharata were the history. Similarly, they started campaigning with the ruling powers, and whenever their own ruling powers they were there, they did it more effectively, and they started campaigning with the uh, NCRT, etc., from 2014 in particular. Now, this particular thing which they campaigned, this is the last point I will make before I go into Hindi. They, from 2014, they started interacting with NCRT, and they said that the use of Urdu words, use of English words should be deleted from our books. Number two, the mention that Dr. Manmohan Singh sought an apology for 1984 Sikh massacre should be deleted. That 2,000 people died in Gujarat violence should be deleted. The mention of Muslim kings in any positive sense should be deleted. So this was their campaign which they undertook. And तो उन्होंने इनके जो मैंने संस्थाओं के नाम पढ़े वो आपने सुन लिए. तो इन्होंने जब से भाजपा सरकार सत्ता में आई तो उन्होंने उससे कैंपेन करना चालू किया कि उर्दू के शब्द, अंग्रेजी शब्दों को निकाला जाए. हाँ, और एक और बात, इंग्लिश पीपल प्लीज ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड द कंसेप्ट ऑफ नेशनलिज्म ऑफ रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर, which is very humane and a beautiful concept, a flowering concept, should be removed from the books. और उन्होंने कहा कि मनमोहन सिंह जी ने जो एपोलॉजी की मांगी थी 1984 सिख मैसेकर की, उसको किताबों से हटा दो. गुजरात दंगों में 2000 लोग, दंगे नहीं कत्लेआम में 2000 मुसलमान मारे गए, उसको हटा दो. ये सब चीजें उन्होंने उस समय से कैंपेन करना चालू किया. और इनकी ये संस्थाओं के माध्यम से उन्होंने समय से एक व्यक्ति का नाम उल्लेख करना बहुत जरूरी है. वो है दीनानाथ बत्रा. दीनानाथ बत्रा की 9 किताबें ये गुजरात के स्कूलों में चल रही हैं. 42,000 Gujarat schools are having Dinanath Batra's books on these particular lines which I have tried to eliminate. और ये आप सबको लोगों को याद होगा कि इन्होंने कैंपेन किया मोदी सरकार से और एक किताब को पल्प करवा दिया. पल्प को हिंदी में क्या कहेंगे, वो नष्ट करवा दिया. वो थी वेंडी डोनिगर की किताब हिंदुइज्म पे, और वो किताब मैंने पढ़ी है. इतनी सुंदर बेहतरीन किताब है. उस किताब की गलती क्या है, वो किताब जो है वो हिंदू दलित और हिंदू महिलाओं के दृष्टिकोण से भी समाज को प्रस्तुत करती है. तो ऑफ कोर्स खैर इससे बड़ा अपराध क्या हो सकता है. तो इसलिए वेंडी डोनिगर की वो किताब को उन्होंने करवा दिया. तो ये उनका एक काम रहा है. तो वन ऑफ द थिंग्स विच दे हैव बीन कैंपेनिंग फ्रॉम 2014 is with the government to stop some books. One of the person we should remember rather, is Dinanath Batra, whose 9 books are operational in 42,000 Gujarat schools with this type of a curriculum. And of course, I have no further knowledge. They must be adding more states to their kitty with this type of a syllabus, which is totally antithetical to democratic. Plural, diverse country. They telling of the history, historicizing of the mythology. यानी mythology को इतिहास के रूप में प्रस्तुत करना, जिसके लिए वो बहुत फंडिंग कर रहे हैं, जिसके लिए वो बहुत पैसा लगा रहे हैं. इसी के साथ साथ जो दूसरी चीजें हैं, जैसे आर्य लोगों का ओरिजिन कहाँ से हुआ. अब ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक है. मैंने जैसे कहा कि हर एक सांप्रदायिक आइडियोलॉजी ये बताने की कोशिश करती है हम सबसे पहले यहाँ के हैं. अभी पॉपुलेशन जेनेटिक्स नाम का एक विज्ञान आया है, उसके आधार पे हम सबको खुशी होना चाहिए. मुझे तो बहुत खुशी हुई कि हम सब, मानव समाज का ओरिजिन जो हुआ वो दक्षिण अफ्रीका में हुआ. वहां से चलकर लोग आए पहली सीरीज में, फिर उसके बाद 4000 पहले ईरान से आए. ये एक बहुत अच्छी किताब आई है, द ओरिजिन ऑफ इंडियंस. उस पे ये सब अलग चीजें हैं, पर इनकी थ्योरी पक्की है कि आर्यों का उगम यहाँ से हुआ, यहाँ से शुरुआत होके वो दूसरे देशों में गए. तो बेसिकली दे वांट टू प्रूव that we are the first comers. They went to different other countries. Now this is a part of their ideology. Otherwise, Adivasis can always come around and say, hello, we are the most indigenous people and you came later. So leave our land to us. But that's quite a risky proposition. So a lot of things are being done to prove that Aryans are the original natives of this place. Now, so basically this, ये जो आरएसएस की जो आइडियोलॉजी है हिंदू राष्ट्रवाद के आधार को मजबूत करने के लिए इस न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में जो ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन वैल्यूज हैं उस पे बहुत जोर दिया जाएगा. वैसे मैं मानता हूँ भारतीय समाज में आर्यभट्ट, चरक, चारवाक, सुश्रुत, इनका बहुत बड़ा योगदान है और उन्होंने बहुत योगदान दिया मानव समाज के ज्ञान के विकास में. पर इनके हिसाब से जो ज्ञान है वो रामायण, महाभारत, उन सब चीजों में चलता रहा है. तो आज हमारे सामने जो सबसे बड़ी चुनौती है कि लोगों के दिमाग में इस प्रकार की चीजों को डाला जाएगा जहां साइंटिफिक टेम्पर, वैज्ञानिक सोच को पीछे रख दिया जाएगा और जो सोच श्रद्धा के आधार पे है. कई धर्मों के धर्मगुरु दावा करते हैं कि हमारी किताब में पूरा ज्ञान है, ये विज्ञान की जरूरत है. वो पीएचडी भी हो जाएंगे साइंस में, फिर भी कहेंगे सब ज्ञान हमारे इस किताब में है, उस किताब में है, और वो परंपरा यहाँ भी शुरू हो गई. तो द बेसिक थ्रेट is not just of the structure of the new education policy, which is against the average people of the society. I think the equally big threat is that of syllabus, content. And here the content which they want to impose through different things, this I have tried to explain. The content related to glorification of past, origin of Aryans here, the historicity of Ramayana, Mahabharata. This is what they have done. And then from last 6 years, what we are witnessing is another phenomenon also. In our universities, in our teaching positions, they are trying by none other than our eminent historian Romila Thopper that the academic positions are being filled not on the grounds of loyalty to a particular ideology, which I think you can guess. तो इसमें जो अगला कदम जो मैं आउटलाइन करना चाहता हूँ वो ये कि पिछले 6 सालों से हमारे शैक्षणिक संस्थानों में जो शिक्षकों के पद हैं, वाइस चांसलर के पदों पर ऐसे लोगों को चुना जा रहा है जिनकी जो योग्यता का आधार उनका एकेडमिक कंट्रीब्यूशन यानी शिक्षा के लिए योगदान उनका आधार नहीं है, एक विचारधारा के प्रति प्रतिबद्धता, ये उनका एक बेसिक चीज ली गई है. तो मुख्य रूप से मैं न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को हमारे जो आजादी के आंदोलन में जो हमारे विचार विकसित हुए, जो हमारा नैरेटिव आया, जो हमारा वर्णन आया, हमारे समाज का, उसको पेश है. दूसरा, जो हमारा समाज शुरू हुआ कि हम एक ऐसा समाज बनाएंगे जहां स्वास्थ्य, शिक्षा, ये 2 चीजों के लिए राज्य पूरा जिम्मेदार होगा. और यहाँ मैं एक बात और भी ऐड कर दूं कि यूपीए 1 और 2 में राइट टू एजुकेशन की बात चल रही थी. वो राइट टू एजुकेशन को इसमें कहीं जगह नहीं है. अल्पसंख्यकों के लिए जो विशेष प्रावधान होना चाहिए, उनके लिए जो सकारात्मक कदम होना चाहिए, उसका इसमें किसी प्रकार की कोई जगह नहीं है. The last point which I want to make in this new education policy does totally reverse whatever we achieved the values wise through our freedom movement. It totally marginalizes the poor and the lower communities of the society, and it goes away from whatever we tried to posit that Indian society should be such where at least health and education should be the basic right of everybody, irrespective of caste, gender, language, religion. So this, friends, is my, I see that in case this is implemented anyway, if they are in power, they are going to continue with some of the things in which we have failed to create an alternative. Like Saraswati Shishu Mandir, Ekal Vidyalaya, and their people in the academic position that I don't know how we counter that, because I basically think that restoration of the values of freedom movement, restoration of the values of academic excellence, restoration of a education which aims at development of all the people and provides a education which is equal irrespective of the background of the child. तो मैं अंत में इतना एक निवेदन करूंगा कि न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी जो समाज में लाए जाने की कोशिश कर रही है, ये पूरी तौर से हमारी जो उपलब्धियां हैं आज़ादी के आंदोलन के दौरान, हमारे संविधान के जो मूल्य हैं और जो हमारे राज्य की नीतियां रही हैं, जहां स्वास्थ्य और शिक्षा को एक जिम्मेदारी माना गया सरकार की, सरकार मतलब एक हमारे इसकी जिम्मेदारी माना गया, उसको पूरी तौर से दरकिनार किया जा रहा है जाएगा। और इसमें कोई उल्लेख नहीं है वो सकारात्मक कदम का जो समाज के कमजोर तबकों के लिए लिया जाना चाहिए, वो दलित हो, धार्मिक अल्पसंख्यक हो, आदिवासी हो या लड़कियां हो, महिलाएं हो, इनके लिए जो सकारात्मक कदम लेना जरूरी है उसका भी इसमें कोई उल्लेख नहीं है। तो ऑन दीज पर्टिकुलर ग्राउंड्स आई स्टैंड हियर to say that I am totally opposed to this new economic policy, new education policy, despite some flashes here and there, which may be welcome. But by and large, it's a addition to the agenda of the Hindu nationalist forces which are in power. And that's why it is no surprise. It is no surprise that RSS and Sangh says that the new education policy is 60% acceptable to us. We welcome it. And of course, in your webinars, 10 people are coming, 30 people are coming, at the most 50 people are coming. All RSS volunteers today are busy selling the new education policy far and wide. This is their current national agenda, which is in operation. So what we can do, how can we ensure that the ideas which I'm very sure more enlightened ideas must have been there in the previous webinars also, and some point which I've added, how can we reach it to the people is a major task for us. Because lately I read RSS has already started a national campaign through all its lakhs and lakhs of volunteers to go far and wide and to propagate that this new education policy is a great boon for India, for nationalism. They will not use the word Indian nationalism. Nationalism, devoid of a prefix, has a no meaning to me. Unless we call it Indian nationalism, it is not my nationalism. It is not the nationalism of Bhagat Singh, Gandhi, Ambedkar, or Sardar. Friends, while thanking you, I request that if we can disseminate the outcome of your wonderful seminars which have already taken place, some points from this, we have to reach it far and wide. Otherwise, it will just remain a campaign, one more this thing which is not effectual. At least our voice of protest has to be strongly registered on very logical grounds which also appeal to the people, and at least we have to reach it to people. In that sense, I welcome this webinar. I congratulate you. I thank you for very much, but with an appeal that this is just the beginning. We have to reach the people far and wide to make them clear that the new education policy is a big disaster in waiting. तो अंत में दोस्तों, आपको धन्यवाद देते समय मैं चाहूंगा, आपको बताऊंगा कि आरएसएस के लाखों वॉलंटियर्स आज इस कैंपेन में जुटे हुए हैं कि न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी बहुत अच्छी है। तो वो ये भी बताते हैं कि इसका 60% उन्होंने योगदान दिया है, उनके कंट्रीब्यूशन का है, और उनके लाखों वॉलंटियर्स ये समाज में बिखरे हुए हैं। तो दोस्तों, हमारा काम है कि हम ये जो बहुत स्वस्थ परंपरा चालू की है वेबिनार्स की, इसको इस रूप में ले जाएं कि आम लोगों तक ये बात को हम दूर दूर तक पहुंचा सकें, और हमारा जो विरोध है इसके प्रति वो एक असरदार तरीके से समाज के सामने कम से कम आए। उसमें सफलता मिलना न मिलना वो तो एक राजनीतिक समीकरण है, पर हमारा जो काम है उसको मजबूती से करना, ये इसी उम्मीद के साथ मैं अपनी बात समाप्त करता हूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you, sir, for your words. Interestingly, Ram Punyani sir today, as always, has given us a historical trajectory of the whole idea of saffronization of education in India. Uh, I would like to clarify to the speaker that though we are on Zoom, we are in a very few numbers. We have been able to reach through other mediums to a large number of people, and hope this continues in the sense that we are able
Yeah.
to take it forward to a lot of people. In fact, a series of webinars we thought around it, because usually what happens is that in one or two webinars we try to discuss NEP, which is affecting millions and millions today. We thought it must gain much more important discussions to have around, and that is the reason why we had this webinar. And thank you, sir. We'll probably open up the discussion for future thoughts. We already have a question coming in. Surjit has asked, in the state level and in the CBSE schools, instructions are pouring in to implement new rules in line with the NEP 2020. NEP 2020 got approved by the cabinet and not yet discussed in the parliament. Shall we not counter it? If yes, how can we? If you could, if we could start it with it, and then probably I'll ask.
Okay. Yeah, I think, see, awareness is the beginning point. Unless people are aware about the dangers of this policy, how the marginalized section will suffer, how the education will become inaccessible for larger sections of society, and how it is going to communalize the mindset of the people. We have to, I think, make the awareness. And from this awareness, I am already sure many people have started their initiatives to oppose this NEP. So whenever it happens, parliament debate, and whenever it comes into the law, before that, if we are ready with our document, a protest, signature campaign, and other things, if we can go ahead, probably that will be a good statement against this. And hopefully, of course, this government has a brute majority in parliament, so you can't expect too much beyond a point. But the opposition, to the leaders of opposition, it should be clear. To the average people, it should be clear. So if the democracy, whatever of it is remaining, if the democracy, whatever of it is remaining, is effective, probably our voice may have some value.
Now we'll invite for more questions and discussions.
थैंक यू प्रोफेसर पुनियानी, आपके जो बात है आज मेरे ख्याल से जो लेकिन हमारे यहाँ एक्चुअली बहुत बड़ी संख्या में, एंड दिस गोज इनटू थाउजेंड्स, you know, people who listen on the Facebook and then later on the YouTube, and it's really widely shared webinar series.
Don't take that
So,
point seriously.
no. I am saying something else. I'm saying something else.
Yeah.
I'm saying that therefore you have already contributed in a big way in raising this public awareness. So, और बहुत अच्छे से. So, I mean, I want to, before I make one observation and two questions, I really want to thank you. I mean, दूसरी बार आपको सामने आमने सुनने का मौका मिला है, and it was really wonderful. Really, being a historian, I want to particularly thank you, because we face this danger, and it's really, in fact, they are completely demolishing, not just blurring, demolishing the distinction between, you know, history and mythology, really. एक बात मैं ये कहना चाह रहा था, छोटी सी, फिर दो छोटे छोटे सवाल, तो उससे शायद स्पष्टीकरण और अच्छा मिल सकेगा. एक तो ये कि जब आप ये बात कह रहे थे, और बहुत अच्छे से, कि जितनी भी दुनिया भर में फंडामेंटलिस्ट हैं, कम्युनलिस्ट हैं, वो जो जन्मजात विभेदीकरण का आधार बना के वो मतलब उसी को एक तरह से प्योर गोल्डन एज मानते हैं. और उस संदर्भ में आपने पेट्रियार्की का उदाहरण दिया और कुछ और उदाहरण दिए. तो इनफैक्ट मैं सोच रहा था उसी तरह से कि जब हम अगर जो पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटीज हैं, अगर उनकी नज़र से भी देखें, तो इन लोगों के बीच में एक मेडिकल मॉडल, डिसेबिलिटी स्टडीज में कहते हैं मेडिकल मॉडल, और एक है सोशल मॉडल, दैट डिसेबिलिटी इज अ सोशल कंस्ट्रक्ट. तो यहाँ पे मेडिकल मॉडल, मतलब इन कंजर्वेटिव फोर्सेस के बीच में, भले ही वो कई बार पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटीज के लिए काफी ज्यादा काम करते हो, पर ये मेडिकल मॉडल के ये तो है ही ऐसा, ये तो रहेंगे ऐसे ही, बस ये कि इनको थोड़ा बेहतर मतलब कुछ सुविधाएं मिल जाएं, पर ये रहेंगे ऐसे ही। ये बहुत ज्यादा प्रिवलेंट रहता है। इस पॉलिसी में भी हम ये देखते हैं कि केवल एक जगह ऐसी है, केवल एक जगह ऐसी है जहां पे ये पॉलिसी कहती है कि इनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, इनकी एजुकेशन स्टेट की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, और वो केवल डिसेबल्ड चिल्ड्रन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कहती है। तो मैं सोच रहा था, तो उस पर कभी अलग से बात कर सकते हैं, बट आई थिंक this really is very, very helpful, this distinction. And it's not simply about Hinduism, as you said. I mean, this is all about all fundamentalism. Now, two things that I really wanted you to elaborate. एक तो ये कि आपने जो डिस्टिंक्शन मेंटेन की उदाहरण सहित नेशनलिज्म और कम्युनलिज्म के बीच में, मैं ये चाह रहा था कि अगर आप वो जो एक ग्रे एरिया है जहां पे नेशनलिज्म का कम्युनल चरित्र होता है, अगर उस पे थोड़ा और प्रकाश डालते तो थोड़ी मदद मिलेगी। एक तो ये बात मैं सोच रहा था, और दूसरा थोड़ा सा एलेबोरेशन ये सोच रहा था कि जैसे आपने बताया किस तरह से लगातार ये आरएसएस शिक्षा में बढ़ता रहा, एकल विद्यालय, फिर वो सरस्वती शिशु मंदिर, फिर उसके बाद अपने कई और ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का नाम बताया, और भी लंबी लिस्ट बनाई जा सकती है। तो इसको लेके उस तरह की सजगता और आलोचनात्मक रवैया प्रगतिशील तबके में, सेकुलर तबके में, मतलब ये जितने ताकतवर आज बने उससे पहले भी बहुत सीमित ही रहा। क्या ऐसा मानना ठीक है, और अगर ऐसा है तो क्यों ऐसा हुआ? ये मेरे दिमाग
ये आपके दोनों सवाल बहुत गहरे सवाल हैं। पहले तो ये बताऊंगा कि भारत के आज़ादी के आंदोलन में जैसे आप कहीं भी देखिए मॉडर्न नेशन स्टेट जब आता है तो सामंती ताकतें, फ्यूडल फोर्सेस को समाज से खत्म कर दिया जाता है, उनकी विचारधारा खत्म हो जाती है। और भारत में गड़बड़ क्या हो गई कि एक तरफ तो आधुनिक, यानी आधुनिक शब्द तो मुझे सोशियोलॉजिकली डिफिकल्ट है डिफाइन करना, पर जो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन, मॉडर्न एजुकेशन, मॉडर्न वैल्यूज का एक तरफ विकास हुआ, साथ ही साथ ये जो फ्यूडल तबके थे वो जिंदा रहे, और उसमें मुस्लिम लीग वहीं से बनी, हिंदू महासभा वहीं से बनी, तो इसलिए थोड़ा उसका कम्युनल चरित्र ये भारत इंडियन नेशनलिज्म का आपको देखने को मिलेगा। पर फिर भी गांधी, नेहरू, पटेल जैसे लोगों ने इसको जो जिन्यून सेकुलर कैरेक्टर है उसको मेंटेन करने का बहुत कोशिश किया। सो बिकॉज ऑफ द non-elimination of the feudal forces, some communal character did come to the freedom movement also, that we can't deny. But again, it is a magic of leadership of mainly Gandhi, Nehru and Patel, Maulana Azad, that they tried to shift it as much as in the genuine secular direction. So this was the first question. What was the second question, Vikas?
About this growth of RSS in education.
What exactly was your question?
That I mean, why is it like?
I got it. Sir. Yeah. See, देखिए क्या हुआ है. I tell you, this is a failure of people like us, that we have always been giving importance to everything except the rise of communalism. 1980s से वो जब सामने रथ यात्रा और खून खराबा बढ़ने लग गया तो थोड़ा लोगों ने ध्यान किया. पहले तो हम जैसे भी लोग सोचते थे ये कम्युनलिज्म क्या है, जैसे विकास होगा, आप विकास नहीं, वैसे ही जैसे विकास होगा तो ये कम्युनलिज्म तो ऑटोमेटिक खत्म हो जाएगा. तो वो एक द पॉइंट वाज दैट वी नेवर टुक द इश्यू ऑफ कम्युनलिज्म वेरी सीरियसली. दैट्स व्हाई अमंग्स द एक मिनट का ब्रेक.
अनम्यूट भी कर देना, हैंड रेज करके. अनम्यूट भी, हैंड रेज भी. मैं अभी आऊंगा आपके पास.
मूर्ति जी म्यूट कर लीजिए.
ओके आइए, ठीक है.
Vic.
सर Can I continue?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
सी वो बीच में थोड़ा घर पे हैं तो थोड़ा बहुत काम बीच में है अच्छा, तो क्या हुआ, आई फील दिस प्रॉब्लम वाज नॉट टेकन सीरियसली बाय प्रोग्रेसिव फोर्सेस. प्रोग्रेसिव अगेन आई एम सेइंग इन द वेग वे.
Inverted commas.
तो जो लोगों को लगा भाई ये क्या है, जैसे मैं शुरुआत में आया तो मुझे लगा ट्रेड यूनियन मूवमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, वर्कर्स पावर बढ़ेगा, इक्वालिटी आएगी. ये बाबरी मस्जिद के बाद मुझे रियलाइज हुआ यार ये केवल हिंदू मुसलमान का सवाल नहीं है. This is a question of, this is a fight between two type of values, democratic and the modern feudal values. ऐसा उसके बाद से मेरे ख्याल से हम लोग इफेक्टिव नहीं रहे. We have not taken it seriously, and actually Pandit Nehru once pointed out that this communalism can pose as nationalism and can destroy democracy. But of course, anyway, it is a, and secondly, of course, there is also a cleverness of this RSS technique. Totally silent work. मेरा नाम अखबार में आता है कि नहीं, कि मैं टीवी के चैनल पे आता हूँ कि नहीं, they don't care. They are so much indoctrinated for their work that silent growth, which of course I don't know how many of us can learn that, but silent growth has made them really powerful. Or third is their model has lot of emotive content, and because progressive people have to go against the stream of the family, and the RSS ideology goes along with the stream of the society, so they could flourish. And after 1980, there have been many global changes, many economic changes within the country, rise of certain classes which want to believe in status quo of caste and gender. So all these factors which we ignored, we are paying the price for that. And we have come to a stage where the things have become very, very difficult. Very, very. क्या एक और क्वेश्चन मैंने पढ़ने में आया, सभी तो क्वेश्चन मैंने पढ़ रहा, इंग्लिश के बारे में. इंग्लिश के बारे में मैं ऐसा नहीं कह रहा कि भाई बाकी भाषाओं को महत्व नहीं दिया चाहिए, पर मुझे खुद लगता है कि इंग्लिश का एक बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंस है. उसको अंडरमाइन करने से एक्चुअली इंडिया को जो एडवांटेज मिला है डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में, उसमें एक बड़ा एडवांटेज हमारे इंग्लिश का भी रहा है, जिसके कारण हमारे बहुत बड़े नवयुवकों को एक लिफ्ट मिला, एक प्रकार से ये मिला. So regional languages, local languages, mother tongue, I respect and I value. I myself was taught in a Hindi medium school, but I do see that English को अगर undermine किया तो क्या होगा, affluent लोगों के बच्चे तो कहीं ना कहीं से English pick up कर लेंगे, और जो गरीब लोगों के बच्चे हैं और deprived लोगों के बच्चे हैं वो फिर वो mother tongue में ही रहेंगे. हमारे महाराष्ट्र में उन्होंने मराठी कंपलसरी कर दी, तो अभी यहाँ के जो लोअर लोग हैं वो तो अच्छे एम्प्लॉयमेंट की उम्मीद ही नहीं कर सकते, because they are totally deprived of the English medium. So this is a complex question. We can think a bit more about it.
Sir, in that sense, I understand that you have another engagement at 8:30. But before that, there are a few questions I'll read out. You can choose which one do you want to answer. And I think also a few others also have questions, including Hargopal sir, Ramurthy sir, Suhas ma'am. So the next question is, you said that Indian nationalism, whose Indian nationalism are we referring to here? Will you include scattered but vibrant nationalisms in different parts of India, including northeastern region and Kashmir? Is a question that has come in. Professor Indrani Datta has asked, Professor Punyani ji, you rightly talked to protesting this NEP, but could you help us with any ideas of how do we plan better and alternate education to counter the present NEP? Lakshmi Narayan sir has asked, sir, cannot we take struggles for equality against caste system before nationalist movement as our starting point instead of just nationalist movement only?
I won't remember so many. See, I think Kashmir and Northeast is quite a vexed problem, and Kashmir is already mired with so many things because it is a partition tragedy, then neighboring Pakistan, intervention of America, coming up of Al-Qaeda. So Kashmir is a totally different cup of tea or whatever you call it. Northeast again, those scattered things. So saw a very different type of profile, so I won't answer. But what question is, how do we counter it? One thing which I have in mind is that in the country today, there are many different platforms. Recently, we had a webinar of National People's Forum, National Solidarity Forum. Then lately, now our friend Neeraj Jain from Pune, he's taking another initiative for 2nd October thing. So my feeling is that, and most of them recognize that new education policy is going to be detrimental to the causes for which they are fighting. So there are many other national platforms with whom we can shake hands, with whom we can rub our shoulders and give strength to them and derive strength from them. That I think is the best way. If we have a proper chalked out small statement, large statement, etc., we should approach conveners of other platforms also, how they can incorporate it as a part of their this thing, and how we can also take up something from there, so that it becomes a sort of a national movement in which we are giving strength to each other. Yeah, what was the other question? I just forget. I think you go one.
Nationalism and the issue of caste.
Yeah, actually, see, caste in India continued irrespective of the ruler. It was actually the education, modern education, that the caste started being attacked. And as the farmers from villages started coming to cities, and then as education started coming, that's why we see it actually ran parallel to the national movement. National movement, I just don't see as anti-colonial movement. In national movement, I see multiple components, and in that, education for women, education for Dalits, abolition of means struggle against caste system, they all run parallel. So first and second, I don't know. Actually, if we see Gandhi's own life, primarily he was initially working against colonial system. शुरू में गांधी ने केवल ब्रिटिश के खिलाफ संघर्ष किया, फिर जब उन्होंने देखा कि यहाँ का कास्ट सिस्टम बहुत स्ट्रांग है, when he saw the caste system is very strong, he took a very strong campaign against untouchability. Next to Ambedkar, if anything, anybody has contributed to weakening of this caste boundary, it is Gandhi himself. So somehow in India, national liberation, anti-colonial movement, making of the nation, and attack against caste system, they have run parallel to each other, and I think slightly integrated to each other also. It is only the communalists who remained aloof from the national movement, and who also opposed the changes coming in of the caste system. Let me tell you one point which I did not mention in my talk, that one of the major reasons for RSS to come up was that Dalits were demanding for their land, Dalits were demanding their liberation from their Brahminical values. And this was one of the major reasons for some of the elite to come and form RSS in 1925. So communalists reinforce caste. Of course, today they are handling caste in multiple ways. They support Ambedkar also at the face of it, and behind the back of it, they try to destroy those values also. So abolition of caste before Indian nationalism, first or second, that I think is a hypothetical question. Both ran parallel. And I think even today, strengthening of the values of Indian constitution will strengthen the struggle against caste. They do run parallel according as per my understanding goes. Yeah, next.
Sir, I think Professor Hargopal had a question, and so did Ramurthy sir. So can we go in that order?
Yeah, you are.
Punyaniji, so thankful to very insightful and very instructive.
Thank you.
We got educated, I must say, because we didn't have the clarity. Two questions. One is, of course, you were mentioning about the rising consciousness among the Dalits, among the women, among the OBCs, among the minorities. Now, this growing consciousness, do you see any tension between this type of hegemonic policy which they want to impose and the type of democratic forces that emerged during last 70 years? Is one, and how do you see this tension? Whether our struggle can be located somewhere in these struggles. Second question is, do you see any tension between global capital, when foreign universities are likely to come, and these conservative fundamentalist values, well, do you see any, I mean, in other words, tension between the feudal type of values and the requirements of global capital and the way it's trying to come to India?
Very good questions, Professor. Partly I would like to answer it. Partly I'd like to answer. First question is that I hold that even the rise of Hindu communalism has slightly been prompted because of the rising awareness amongst Dalits and women. You are precisely on the dot. And if you want to see one simple example, in 1990, VP Singh brought in Mandal Commission recommendations. And after that, this Rath Yatra movement became more powerful. So they did not want to say that we oppose the Mandal Commission, but they took a bypass and they said, this Ram temple is important. So Atal Bihari Vajpayee put it very brilliantly. He said, they brought in Mandal, we brought in Kamandal. So that you are very right that coming up of women's movement partly and coming up of the movement of the Dalit OBC, that led to the existential anxiety amongst the upper caste. And that made them come together and become so powerful, number one. And number two, I must say that foreign university and the feudal mindset here, no contradiction. Both are opportunists. Both adopt to each other. One of my very great scholarly friend told me, why you are working against communalism? As the globalization increases, communalism will disappear. We saw the other way around. Globalization goes up, communalism goes up. Foreign universities, basically they are for business. Please note, they are not for values. They don't care what happens in your social system, what you try to do. So far as they can mint money, they are happy to do that. So there is no contradiction between foreign universities and persistence of values. Yeah. Nice seeing you. Yeah, next.
Before he unmutes, I'll read out a comment that has come. Suhas Kolhekar noted, as for the language, English as a language is one thing, but imposing English as a medium of instruction is different issue to be deliberated in detail separately. However, the approach about language in the NEP 2020 is dangerous as expressed by Ganesh Devi sir and other experts in linguistics. NEP 2020 aims to bring out space for imposing Sanskrit not as a language, but use of Sanskrit to impose the glorious past culture and the values of Manusmriti. So I think this is in line with what our speaker was.
Actually, I will more or less agree with this formulation. This is precisely why Sanskrit is being promoted. Because all those Manusmriti type, Manusmriti is one, but Manusmriti type things, they all talk the same thing. So that's why Sanskrit is great, Sanskrit is glorious, and Sanskrit must be brought in. So those values automatically are instilled in the children's mind if Sanskrit is promoted in this recklessness.
If I may, I would just like to share with you, Ram Punyani, that recently we had a meeting with many organizations of various ideologies with Medhatai and the NAPM group. And we are planning to have a culmination of the process of opposing NEP 2020 on 3rd January, the Savitri Bai Phule Day. And some of us will be approaching you for sure. So please block 3rd January for this process.
I am with you. I am with you.
I know we have been together.
Yeah,
but I took this opportunity to convey to the audience also.
Sure.
And we'll be approaching you for sure. Thank you.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes. Yeah.
In conjunction with Professor Hargopal sir's question, I would like to ask from Punyani, from you, that while knowing clearly that Brahminical Hindutva is meant to perpetuate or subjugate the upper castic hegemony over the Dalit and other downtrodden section of the so-called Hindu society, why they are not taking it that seriously even since last many years, and why they are not opposing it outrightly. And so it's about the tribal. We know in the remote section of if they they arbitrarily impose the Hinduist idea in form of their culture and religion, which is much more known to you. So why these particular section are not able to say outrightly, okay, we don't accept this Hinduism at all.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'll call you back. I'll call you back 5 minutes. See, I think all of us need to think about it. Just see the distinction between RSS word stands for Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Women can't be the member of that. They have Rashtra Sevika Samiti. Now, what RSS has done, it has floated many organizations to work amongst Adivasis, which is Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. To work amongst Dalits, Samajik Samrastha Manch. To work amongst women, Rashtra Sevika Samiti. So through these, they are trying to do partly social engineering, partly co-option, and partly some of the people are bought over also literally. So Dalits, who should have been the strongest force against this Hindu nationalism, through three mechanisms they are trying to co-opt and Dalits, and also here partly that Sanskritization phenomenon also works, that they regard that, oh, these upper caste people have come to talk to us, they are trying to look forward to us. So through multiple mechanisms, the resistance is not as strong as it should be. Even as of now, many women's groups, many Dalit groups, and many OBC groups do recognize that RSS ideology, Hindu nationalism, is detrimental to their basic rights. But still, because of the close to 95 years of work of RSS, they have also tried to work amongst those communities who at one level are going to be the biggest victims of their own politics and biggest victims in the form of the rights. So these two things are going together, unfortunately. And as I say, it is more the failure of progressive forces than their own success.
Probably we are nearing the last point of today's webinar. Before that, Vikas sir has noted something around it. Professor Punyaniji, you will be happy to note that All India Forum for Right to Education has organized 2 rounds of consultations with teachers organizations where we got a huge participation. Similarly, we are now planning to organize 2 discussions with students organizations and right-based groups. We hope that again hundreds of organizations will participate and join hands. We really hope your kind of blessings and cooperation in this endeavor. We promise that through these discussions, we want to build a program of resistance. Hopefully, this would also lead to the formulation of an alternative policy in due course of time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your
My phone is
time.
buzzing from the other side.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry to be leaving a bit early. Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
to
you
see all
very
of
much.
you.
Thank
you very
Vikas.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Yes,
Yeah,
In these
thanks a
dark
lot.
times, this is only
Yes.
solidarity which helps us.
yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
really.
Thank you, Punyaniji.